Good morning. Welcome to Sew Together Live with Shannon Fabrics. I'm your Cuddle Ambassador, Ryn Baxter from Salt Lake City, Utah. I am so excited to have you all join us on this beautiful autumn day. At least I hope it's beautiful where you're at. Speaking of, be sure to share and like for an opportunity to win our prize at the end of this live. We're going to be sending you a beautiful fat quarter pack and a yard of fabric for your backing so that you can replicate this beautiful pattern that I have found on Quilting Daily. It is a beautiful table runner and placemat set that will be a wonderful addition to set the tone of your hosted party or festivities, whatever you're going to be doing this wonderful autumn season. We'll go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be making really quick. Looking over at our cutting mat, I'll have you scooch over there with me. Adriana, if you could scoot over there, would perfect. Okay, so we've got our beautiful placemats that match. Highly suggest you make these. We're going to be focusing on the table runner here in just a moment. I want to show you some of what we're using. The ones that I have finished here are out of multiple types of fabric. And we've got our Luxe Cuddle as our pumpkin. We've got our Quilting Cuddle as our stem. We've got some C3 or our regular original cuddle that y'all are used to seeing for our leaves and our binding. And then I've got that on our cotton, and I backed it with cotton for these finished ones. The one that we're going to be working on today is going to be out of all of our Quilting Cuddle. I am so excited to start working with this. It is one of my favorite fabric mediums as it has less stretch and half the pile of our C3. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. I'm going to just show you a few of these and a couple of the differences here really quickly. We've got our red, our beautiful mandarin, sunshine, and our brown. So these are the ones that I'm going to be working on out of our C3, our Quilting Cuddle. I've got C3 for our pumpkin to add a little bit of texture as well for all of our applique pieces. So you can see, I want you to see the difference. So here's the pile on the C3 here. It's a little bit of a fluffier pile. Compare it to the pile on this. This is a shorter pile. You have a little bit more control when you get into some of the details that we're going to be working with our applique, especially in those leaves and the twists and turns and points. So I also am going to be using it for my backing and my background, as well as my stem. I love our blenders and our solids. We have some great collection pieces, but I want to highlight our solids and our blenders. This is our Forest Melange. It is so, the colors, it's not doing it justice on camera, but you get texture out of the print as well out of the fabric itself with that beautiful nap there. So we're going to be doing a sand melange for our backing, or I'm sorry, our background. This is the sand melange. So we'll be playing with all of these fabrics here. I just want to quickly touch on my fun tools that I use for this project. I can't work without. I'm going to just take a quick peek here. I want to make sure that I'm seeing people. Hi, Ginger. Hi, Melinda. Hi, Renee. Let's see. Please, yes, share. Make sure that you share and like for a chance to win our prize at the end of the bundle of fat quarters and a yard for your backing. So real quick, we'll touch on the tools that I love to use. This is our water-soluble stabilizer. I am using this to actually get my top stitching on the leaves and the pumpkin and the stem so that I get my stitching right where I want it. I'm using my 505 to based my top layer to my batting and my backing to my batting as well, and giving that sandwich with this basting spray from Odif 505. Love that. It's a must in our Cuddle tools, as well as the stick. This is actually probably my top tool. I found myself using it for binding today, this morning, to make the connection before I sewed. I'll show you that trick in a little bit. And of course, we've got our rotary blades and our scissors. I love our clover pins. These really do make a difference. I've tried the others. I have them break on me. When they slip into the pile here, they break a lot. I don't break these ones very often. They are a lot sturdier and more durable. We do get the medium weight, so it's got a small bend in it, but not a lot. And then because I'm using water soluble, hands sweat and sometimes aren't quite as well fluid as I need them to be. So I use quilting gloves when it comes time to utilizing that. And then of course my stiletto by Annie. I have my backup here, but this is my fun guy here that I really love to use. And then I've also picked out my colors for my embroidery ahead of time, or my applique top stitching ahead of time. So we've got a few different colors here that I have chosen. You can go with whatever your heart desires. With top stitching, you're going to get a little bit more detail with the Quilting Cuddle compared to the C3. I decided to go with more of a darker gold for the leaf. It's kind of hard to see. They're all really close. It's a little easier to see. This one's a little bit darker, so that's what I went with. I want my colors to show through as much as possible. So let's see. Oh yes, Jackie, I know that it's a perfect fall setting. I'm obsessed with this pattern right now. So I want to go ahead and dive into prepping our fabric. We have a couple of things that we've got to prep before we get things put together. So we're going to just set up really fast for that right now. I'm just going to scoot these guys out of the way. Okay. Now, just like our other cuddles, our melange and our solids do have a nap. All of our cuddles have a nap because that's what makes them so fabulous. So the directions give you a starting point with your squares. So you're going to cut out all of your squares. Now, when you do this, you're going to lose your nap. Unfortunately, you don't want to lose your nap, but it's bound to happen. And that's because the smaller you get, the more likely you are to lose it. So I have found my own little tip and trick that I like to use. Of course, we've got our silver and gold Sharpies that we love so that they show but don't show through the fabric. I find my nap on my strip, and I'm going to set that over there. So when I'm looking at it, you can see that it gives me a nap. And I am going to fold, so I know this is going up. I'm just going to make my arrow right here, so I know. Now I'm going to flip this all the way over to the back. And I know it tells me on the pattern, I need 9 squares, I need 6 squares. So I actually and I know that it's going to be 2.5 inches spaced. You can get really, line yourself up here and make it perfect if you want. But I just kind of go through and I make my own little marks. And this way I'm not going to lose my nap. And now I can go through and cut from the back and it's ready to go. You can see I've done that on all of these here. So now, and like this one, it's not perfect. That's okay. I know my direction. I can see a little point there, but this allows me to really line up, and rather than fiddling with my nap and trying to figure out and feel like I've lost them, I have lost 2 pieces of my cuddle. I just had them. Give me 2 seconds here. There they are. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so you can see now I have my direction. They're all going to be going the same way. I'm not fiddling with anything. I can go ahead and start piecing these together. I've got the nap set, so we're going to go ahead and get this row sewn together, and then we're going to come in and do the attach it to the next row. Now, if we move over to the sewing machine, these guys are so small, you can get finicky with it with your pinning. Let's move on over to the sewing machine here, and we're going to go ahead and get this row sewn. Now, when we're matching up, this is a little easier than using the C3 because, as you can see here, it is a much smaller pile. Well, not much smaller, but it's half the millimeter. It's a 1.5. Also, you'll notice too, there is a small stretch still, but it bounces, oops, small stretch, but it does bounce back compared to the C3. So I'm not worried about that edge stretching out with these small pieces because of that. I get to have a little bit more control. So I'm going to make sure that my pieces are going side by side, right sides together. And then we're going to go ahead and pin this. Now, quilting Cuddle, the fabulous part of this is that you get to keep your sharp lines and points with it. So I've got my pins in there. We'll go ahead, and this calls for a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all of them that you're doing. Hi, Bruce from Florida. Oh, Renee, I hope you have a great time at your daughter's for Thanksgiving. That sounds fabulous. I'm going to go ahead and start sewing down these lines. Make sure you're removing your pins as you go. Now, when I get to this spot here, I stop and I don't remove it. I'm going to grab my next pieces. Looking at where I'm at, confusing myself, there we go. I want to make sure that this is going to line up correctly. So I'm going to just make sure that I've got my points here. We're just kind of doing an opposite effect. So we make sure that we're getting one on each side. So again, I'm just getting my pins. These squares are 2.5 inches by 2.5, so they're pretty small. And you can see I still have plenty of control. I have my extra finger or my finger extender, whatever works for you, here, and I'm going to go ahead and just let this come underneath. I'm going to help this out a little bit so it doesn't fold under there. We are? Okay. I'm going to give it a couple stitches and then take my pin out. And I like to put my pins over a little bit further, and notice I'm not double pinning. I'm not double pinning at all, and I'm still going to get my points and my lines that I want. We're never going to say no to double pinning. If you find yourself needing more control on the fabric, always double pin for yourself. But for the most part, hi Roxanne from Ohio. You'll notice I'm just putting a single line of pins and I'm scooting them over far enough that if I need to, I can leave the pin in until I get to the pin head. So that's how I'm retaining control without double pinning, is just by scooting that over just slightly so that I have that. Okay. Get that one under there as well. This is called chain stitching for those that are familiar with quilting. There's really no other way to get your rows done because otherwise you're going to spend so much time just piecing that together. So you want to make sure that we save on some of that, and the piecing is fun, not slow and tedious. So just real quick, I'm going to show you here. I am getting a really great 1/4 inch seam. I'm not having to fuss with it. So now that I've got those done, I've got my square here, and we're going to go through and just trim these apart. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for joining. Hi, Leah from North California. Thanks for joining us as well. All right, so because these squares are small and I'm focused on one row at a time, you can see I've got all my different pieces here. I'm going to lay these out, and we want to go every other. There we are. So I'm making sure that it's every other, and now I'm just going to attach. Squeeze down. That would have been problematic. This is why we have our arrows. I'm trying to make sure you can see that. So this would have been, my nap would have been wrong, and that's why I do that. So now I can just quickly flip it, add my pins, and I'm good to go. I prefer to chain stitch as much of my squares as possible. So you'll find, you know, some people will lay them out and go bit by bit and have different ones lined up. When I'm dealing with just 2 colors and I'm not going crazy with the pattern, I can really just grab 2 of them, start, and go from there. And then with the second phase, sort them out and make sure that it is every other as the pattern is requesting. Oh, Ajer, you nailed it. You're not fighting the naps with each other. When you start having your naps go in opposite directions, you really do lose your structure within the fabric because it's now fighting itself. Just to show you really quick, so these ones are going the right way, but if I match this up to this side, it gets a little bit trickier and I have to fuss a little bit more right here, and it's not lining up as nicely. It's actually kind of fighting itself. And even worse, if I make it go backwards, not to say you can't, but you have a little bit more finicky. Whereas if I just put these 2, they want to snuggle. They just snuggle right there. I'm not fussing at all because my naps are going the same direction. So when you're building your quilt pieces and your squares, keep in mind that the structure and how you're building it together comes in handy. So you are eventually, because it's a square, you are going to have it sewn on all sides. And you may have opposite naps touching each other for a moment. It's a lot easier, though, to go step by step to get there, to keep your structure with the fabric so that you don't lose your control as you're moving with it, because you don't want that fighting itself. All right. If you haven't shared already, please share for a chance to win one of our beautiful fat 1/4 packs and a yard of backing, so that you too can make this fun table runner. It's a really easy table runner. It goes pretty quickly. I had a lot of fun building it. You'll notice when you pull up the pattern, though, if you go to Quilting Daily and pull this pattern up, you're going to find that they used a brown backing and background. I thought it was beautiful, but I prefer to match the tones in my home to have a lighter background. So you don't have to stick with what the pattern has. You do want to make sure though that you match fabric for fabric and what they require. If you're going to be changing up your fabrics like that. Sometimes if it gets really complicated and I'm changing things up, I will use painter's tape and mark right on the painter's tape and then put that on the back of the fabric, so that I can keep tabs on what is supposed to be what, especially when you get into applique pieces that are very detailed and have a lot of moving bits. So, all right, we've got our row done here. I've got another row done here, and we want to attach these together. But before we do that, an important step that I refuse to do in my younger years is pressing and ironing. So let's head on over to our ironing board, and we're going to take a peek at the table runner as well as iron or press these pieces. So this is the table runner. We saw the placemats. This is the table runner that we're going to be working on or building together. It's got a beautiful pumpkin down here that you can do your top stitching in, and we'll talk about different stitch styles as well as within your leaves here. You can see the dimension that top stitch adds utilizing the nap of the fabric, and that's why I love this. Then I want to point out this is actually C3, and so you're going to see the difference. I did do quarter seam allowances on this. You can see it's a little pulled, a little stretched. I have yet to quilt within it. It is stitched in the ditch, but I haven't done any other quilting within it, which may help the C3 and some of the stretching bits that you're seeing here. It just warped slightly, especially here on the ends using the C3. So this is why I wanted to use our quilting Cuddle so that we can see the difference in those two and how they work. So let's go ahead and set this to the side. We're going to go ahead and talk about pressing versus ironing. I don't know how familiar y'all all are with the differences, but we've got our fabulous Oliso iron here that is my new favorite toy. So this is one of the best little irons, I think. So it packs quite the punch. I just got this iron. It's brand new. And really quick, I just want to show you one of the coolest aspects of this iron. It actually has this fabulous silicone pad, and it's not only a storage guard, and as you can see, this is plugged in. It's off. There's a fabulous red button. It's kind of hard to see, but it just snaps on and off. So I'm able to touch this. It's off but plugged in and totally safe. That's fabulous for storage, but I love that I can peel that off, turn it over, and now I have a resting pad for my iron as well. So this is, I know it sounds so silly, but it really does kind of hasten the process. And when I'm working in a small space, it is exactly what I need. They've got this fabulous dual steam head, so you can decide where the steam is going to be coming from, where you want that placed. The water reservoir is not as small as you would think. It carries pretty far. I've only had to refill it twice now, and I've been sewing all weekend. So not pressing all weekend, mind you, but sewing all weekend, so it has lasted. With that being said, I want to get in and show you how to use this because it is wonderful with our quilting Cuddle. I'm just going to give this a quick little punch there to turn that on, and it's going to go green for me. You've got your different settings here. I have been using it on the highest setting, and I've had no problems. It's okay because I'm not actually letting it sit there for a long time. So I have still more control over it. Oh, Patricia, I know. The Alyssa iron is a game changer from what I've been working with it. So when we're pressing our squares here, our rows, I'm going to point out really quick, it's a lot easier if you do it opposite from each other. So I'm going to press one way and one the other way. I'm going to lay them out here so that you can see the differences in how we're doing this. So I like to gently hold. I'm not applying tension. I am holding it. But this is so that it doesn't go anywhere also. And I'm applying the iron directly to the fabric. So pressing versus ironing, for those that are unfamiliar with the terms, we'll go over them really quickly. A press means that you're going to put the iron down on the fabric, lift up after a certain period of time, and then put it back down in a different location. And you can put some pressure on it, depending on how heavy your iron is. You may not need to. Versus ironing, which is actually the movement of the iron when we do this little motion here, and we get into more of like garments and apparel type products, you'll find you use ironing more often compared to pressing with quilt pieces. Same thing when we get into our applique, we do more of a pressing method than we do of our ironing method. So we'll go ahead and do the second one here. Now, keep that flipped just so that I can see while I'm starting. I am, for the sake of being right-handed, I'm going to flip that around just while I do this part. Now, if you pull on this and iron it, it may warp it. I would highly suggest not to apply that tension there. You're just wanting to make sure that it's not getting caught underneath the iron and that it's getting ironed flat. That's all I'm doing, is just gently making sure that is straight and flat. And I don't always, when I'm pressing, I am cautious to make sure that the amount that I move the iron and lift the iron is adequate to what I am pressing or ironing down on, specifically pressing on. I don't always need to move the iron completely up and over. Sometimes it's just a gentle lift and glide, depending on how I'm working with the security of the fabric. So now that we have our fabrics pressed and our naps all going the same direction, you can flip it back over. And so you can see here how they are opposite each other, right? So, and it really it does nest well, really well with each other. So we're going to go ahead and sew this line down, right sides together, now that our nap is going all the same direction. We'll get this sewn. I'll meet you over at the sewing machine. Now, you can lay this out on your cutting mat if you need to pin it, but we're going to go ahead and just pin here at the machine using the same method. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more picky here with my corners because I want them to nest. So when I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that I see a nice little nest and just fold my corners and make sure they're nice and snug with each other. I'm going to go ahead and pin the best of my abilities that seam closed because I don't want it fighting under the machine as much as possible. Okay. I just realized I'm doing this upside down. Okay, I got this. Okay. So when you're sewing your row underneath and you're working on nesting, if you keep the row, the bottom row going down so that you're not fighting it against the machine, then you can keep tabs on this top row here as it's going against the direction of your stitching. So you can keep a little bit closer tabs on that. Sorry about that. Make sure you can see that in there. Oh, I'm breaking up. Oh no. Jackie, am I still breaking up? Hi, Stephanie from Pennsylvania. This is such an easy table runner to do. If you're just joining us, I found this table runner on Quilting Daily, and it's a great table runner for the festivities of the season, offering some fall decor to your fun hosting, or if you're not hosting, just for you and someone special, maybe. I don't know. That's what my husband and I are going to be doing this year, keeping it simple. Now, I'm going to point out again, I am not doing the double pin method. If you find yourself needing that extra control, please do the double pin method. We love that here. It's kind of fun, though, to be able to only pin one row with the quilting Cuddle. It's just a little fun to be able to utilize it the same way that you would a quilting cotton. And that minimal stretch really allows it to behave a little bit more like a quilting cotton. Now that I've got that pinned and I have my all my joints where I want them, we're going to get this under the machine and sew our line down. Okay. Now, again, because I'm pinning just a single line here, I want to be able to have the pin scoot just enough over. See, and then I get myself trapped in here. But this is where the stiletto comes in handy. More reasons than just one that I love our stiletto that we utilize so often by Annie. But it's just enough that I can keep that pin head, I can keep that pin in there just long enough to have a little bit more control if I want. Get the little look in there. I love my Bernina. This is just the standard walking foot, not the plug-in. This machine, I was actually talking with a colleague today. I got this back in, oh gosh, this model came out, I think in 2006. Maybe a year or two previous or after that, I don't remember exactly, but it's close to 20 years old. And I get her service as often as I should, but I have had no special issues with her. She is a workhorse. I have done everything on her. I have the embroidery module attachment as well that connects with the computer. I mean, old school it. And she still goes. Everything works great. I've never really had too many issues with her. I admit that from junior high on, being here in Utah, you're able to actually utilize Bernina sewing machines in the district within Alpine and Salt Lake School District. And so I actually learned how to sew on Berninas, and I am a little partial because of it. But I also love all of the other machines too. They all have their pros and cons. But I'm a big Bernina fan, but to each their own. I know everybody has their own preferences. One of which that kind of bothers me with this Bernina, she doesn't like any other embroidery thread outside of Isacord. I have tried Florani. I have tried, oh gosh, the others are escaping me at the moment, but I've tried a handful, and a superior, yeah, and it just splits the threads no matter what. I have to do Isacord. But any other, she's not like that with any other threads, just the embroidery threads. So that's my biggest complaint with her, and she gets really finicky. That I find a lot of machines are that way. So you just got to get to know your machine, and yeah. I rarely change out my walking foot. This walking foot has an open toe, and it's because I like to see what I'm doing. I like to have as much control over where the needle is going to be in the project as possible. Let's see here. Okay, so we've got our rose stone, and just really quickly, you can get a much finer point on these than you can with the C3. And they are just, it's fabulous. So let's go ahead and go back over to the ironing board, and we'll iron this out, and I'll show you what it looks like finished once we have all of the rows done as well. So this iron, I kind of want to have excuses to use it because I love it so much. I feel silly saying that. But when you do iron your rows, make sure that you nest your seams. You're going to fold over to one side, pick your side and stick with it. I like to see what side it kind of flows to and work with that. But just like with your row, you want with the columns that you just sewed prior and pressed, you want everything going in the same direction. So we'll go ahead and just press this out really fast and iron it. All right, so this part here, you've got two options. If you're nervous and you're really worried about this melting, I grab a piece of muslin, a pillowcase, an extra piece of cotton fabric that you've got lying around that you don't care about or utilize, and then you can do the pressing on this. Now, I did play around a little. And yes, you can absolutely protect your fabric and do that. Other option is directly on it. And it's at the highest setting. Now, I am cautious because I don't want to melt it, but it does work. And it does give me what I need, and it does press it. So that's kind of just as a heads up. Now, I will say though, with the Oslo iron, this project iron, the highest heat setting is not as high as I'd say like my big guy. The bigger one does have more heat punch packed to it. I like the project one having less so that I'm not burning myself as often. And it really doesn't need to be as hot as I've done it in the past as well. So, which is kind of a nice realization to come across too. So I'm just going to sneak this over here to the side. Turn that off so it's not getting too hot. All right, move these out. So this is what you're going to see once you're done with your rows. You'll end up having 5 rows of squares that you can then go in, stitch in the ditch, quilt in, whatever you want, but you can see how tight I was able to get those squares in comparison to the C3. And that's one of the fun things about this. I was really scared to put the iron directly on the quilting Cuddle. Yeah, we can also grab a pressing sheet. Yeah, the dark thread doesn't show. You can see the silver thread or the silver Sharpie doesn't show either through the yellow. I'll even bring this closer to the camera so you can see that. And it pressed really well. I pressed directly on this, and I did not have any problems. I will peel this back so you can see. So it just looks so nice when you press it. And they nest so well that you really don't have a ton of bulk. I was really worried that I was going to have bulky seams if I if I didn't do an open seam. And so I got a little nervous, but I decided to trust the process. And I'm so happy I trust the process because there's no bulk. It really, you can't tell, just like you would with a cotton one. So that is the quilting rectangle section of the table runner. We're going to move on into our applique side of things. I'll meet you over at our cutting mat here. All right, so looking at what we've got going on for our background and our backing, we're using our melange, which I just love. Yeah, you don't have to have it super hot, but it's really, thank you, Ajer, for commenting that with on the big Oslo, if you do have one, because you do only have the 3 small settings, which are fabulous. You really don't need more with small projects like this. All right, so the 2 melanges that we've got working in our favor here, we're going to keep in mind the nap as we do this. Really important, just as we were talking about for the sewing, but also for applique, because you want everything to flow in the same direction so it's pleasing to the eye and it's not fighting each other as well. So the way that the directions ask you to do this is you're going to go ahead and take your background and you're going to cut 24.5 inches by your width of your fabric. Once you have that cut out, then you're going to cut your fold off here, and you're going to measure 14.5 inches, and from the fold side cut, and that gives you 2 of your background pieces. Set those aside. And grab your backing fabric real quick. We'll get that prepped. Your backing is going to be slightly different because there's a nap. Whether you're using a printed fabric, a print that's going in one direction, or you're using a nap. Same rules apply with this pattern so that you can make sure you get the length that you need out of it and that it's all going the right direction. You don't have to press your cuddle. So on the C3 or anything that's a longer pile, especially in the Luxe family, I will use a pressing cloth just for protection, because those longer fibers can get away and melt a little bit. I've never actually had that happen, but I have been nervous about it. I don't always set my iron to the highest setting, so just kind of keeping in mind, the lower the pile, the less you need a pressing cloth, but you just play it on the safe side, preferably. So looking at our backing here, we want our nap to go the same direction, all in one. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a yard of fabric and we're going to cut it in half. We want the width of fabric cut in half. So we're going to cut I usually take 1/8 of an inch, or you can take scissors and just cut this in half. And then you'll have 2 separate pieces. Those 2 separate pieces are then going to, I'm going to squeeze this one, and I'm going to show you on this one. Once you've got your 2 separate pieces, you can set them next to each other and make sure that your naps are meeting and going the same direction. So here's one piece and here's another. If I go all one way with my hand, it stays one way. If I go all directions, it's going the same direction. So you'll notice one trick to make sure that it stays this way, because you're not cutting anything from your selvage edge, you have them. You'll notice that my selvage edge here is opposite of my selvage edge up here. And that will help make sure that my nap is going in the same direction. Another way that I check my nap to make sure throughout my projects that they're correct is when I am looking at my fabric, I lay out the back of my fabric and then I fold over a portion of it. Okay. And then from here, I can move my fabric as needed and I can get a feeling of where the nap is supposed to be. And I know that's going down, so now I'm marking it down, and I'm not having to move the fabric to mark it. I'm marking it as I'm seeing it, okay? And then that piece is marked, and I can move it away, and no matter what, I know which direction my nap is because I've got it marked up here. All right, so you'll want to mark the back of your fabric, and then you won't have as much difficulty. If you forget, though, opposite selvage edge on this end from this end, and it'll still go the same direction. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sew them together, right sides together, to make a nice long backing for yourself. Okay, so once you have that sewn, we can set that aside and work on our applique pieces. Let's jump into the applique side. Let's see. That melange forest is so beautiful. It's one of my favorites. It's why I wanted it for the backing. I knew I wanted it for the stem of my pumpkin. As you'll see, it makes a really, really adorable stem. But I also wanted it for the backing because it's so beautiful. So moving into our applique, I do things slightly different than what the pattern does, and that's because we're working with our C3, or I'm sorry, we are working with C3, but are also quilting Cuddle. And I have played so much with applique. You can use heat and bond. You can use SF101. You can use them together. You can use just the temporary 505 adhesive spray, basting spray, or stick, and I don't really suggest that one because you lose your structure of fabric. This is my preferred way because I have the most control over what I need my pieces to be doing. So we're going to go ahead and grab SF101. It's going to be on the right side, look like muslin. On the back side, it's going to have these funky glue dots. And those funky bumpies, that's actually glue, heat activated, with our fun Oslo iron. So all I do with this side of it is I'm going to go ahead and pull my pattern really quick. We're just going to let's grab one of these. Doesn't really matter which one. And these are print to size. The pattern, I love print to size patterns. Not a lot of fuss. So once you have your pattern picked, actually, let me grab for the camera. Once you've got your piece picked, your applique piece, you're going to go ahead and trace. You're going to trace the outline of the piece. So you can see there. Now, I don't know if you noticed here, I have colors because I'm like that. When I have multiple moving pieces, I'd like to have different colors to help with different things. Also, SF101 can kind of poke out from time to time, and that way the color matches. Is kind of one of my favorite things to do. Then I don't have to worry about it. Also, give me all the colors, and I'm not going to complain. Let's see here. So I just quickly trace on it. Now, if you notice, it bleeds a little bit, so I'm not actually applying a lot. You can also do this with a pen. You can do it with a washable, either a heat-soluble or water-soluble pen as well. Those are also preferred, depending on when I'm applying my heat will depend if I use the heat version. But if you're really uncomfortable with the bleed, you can jump in here, as long as you keep in mind this is going to disappear. The reason I don't put this on here yet is because this is going to disappear with heat. I need to press this to the back of my fabric before I cut it out. That means I'm going to lose my image. So that's why I don't like doing it that way. You can do it and you can cut it out first and then put it down. I don't like that either. Again, I'm more about keeping as much of the fabric stretch and and nap in my control compared to the other side of things. So the bleeding side doesn't bother me. Once you've traced it out, you're going to go ahead and take, and this is the beauty of this. It's a leaf. So perfection is not the name of the game. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a perfect leaf. I'm sure they exist, but usually they've been crunched on, or, but they're all a little unique and slightly different. So have fun with it. Okay. I don't cut my image out directly either. Not yet. So you'll see, it doesn't take long because I'm not being perfect about it. You just kind of get in there. Okay. So once I have that, I take my rotary blade and I just cut it out into a fun circle there. Okay. Then I can take that and move over to my iron. And I don't do them one at a time. I'll trace out all of my leaves, my pumpkin, my stem. I trace that all out, anything that I'm going to be doing. And we'll move over to the cutting mat. I'm sorry, not the cutting mat, the ironing board here. And from here, we'll go ahead and iron the leaf on to the back of the fabric. Now, this is also why you do your squares first, so that you know what you have left. If you're working in tight quarters with a fat quarter, for example, you want to make sure you have enough. So make sure that you cut your squares out first. This is also up to you with the nap. You can get playful with the nap and the leaves. You can have the nap running all up and down, side to side, however fits your fancy. I'm going to go ahead and just check my nap really quick and see where things are. All right, so my nap is going away from me. Let's get that marked. Okay, super easy, making sure that's where it needs to be. All right, now I'm actually going to stay away from the arrow because I'll have others that you place. Because once you have the leaf ironed on, you know the direction. So from here, we'll make sure the iron is on. We want to make sure it's nice and hot. This is where pressing versus ironing really, really matters with an applique. I've had images scooch on me. So if you are not going to be caring so much about them moving around, iron away, but I would make sure that you press versus iron. The backing is our Forest Melange. It's one of my favorite colors. I'm obsessed with our forest right now. Hi, Jana. Welcome, welcome. Let's see. Yeah, and like Jackie said, and the reason why it's fun to play with the nap is because you do get different shades depending on which direction the nap is laying. And so that's one of the fun parts about being able to work within fabrics that have a plush. Now, I'm lifting up and putting it down. I'm being very, very deliberate with this. I don't like to have a lot of excess with my SF101 because I don't want to waste my fabric. You'll notice that maybe you have some lines, or it might start to feel like it has a little bit of a bubble effect from time to time. So after you're done pressing and you're comfortable with knowing that it's not going to shift, then you can iron the back to smooth out anything you feel like needs to be smoothed out. But I would, so now you can see some of these indents and lines, those just go away with a little bit of ironing. They go right away. Okay. So nice, flat, and smooth. You move back. When I do this, I will do all of my pieces together at the ironing board, and then from there we can move over to the cutting table, move over to our cutting mat. And here we're going to cut out our pieces. And I like to cut out the whole thing in a circle and then just go ahead and work from there. Now, you can cut it out with your rotary cutter or with scissors. whatever is easiest for you. I'm not going to spend time cutting this out because it does take a little bit of time with it being nitpicky and how my hands particularly work. It takes me just a little bit longer than most to cut things out like that. So we're just going to scoot to the side. I have, ta-da, leaves already done. TV magic. So the yellows, the orange, the reds, these all play really well with each other. To find the colors that I wanted to use, since I knew I was changing the backing in the background, I hopped into our shannonfabrics.com website and typed in quilting Cuddle, and I clicked on the first available color. I believe it was white. And if you notice, you'll scroll down, and you can do this whether you are a store or a consumer quilter, whoever you are. Scroll down to the bottom there and you can view all, and you have a beautiful color palette there for you to pick from. And I was able to select my colors from there for my pumpkin. If you notice, now we purposely wanted more texture on the pumpkin, so I went with a C3, but we do have an orange in the quilting Cuddle. So you'll notice this is the mandarin versus the orange. And so it does matter, and you can see the difference on the site. It's really kind of fun to be able to feel like you're playing with a beautiful color palette that they've provided for you there. So once you have all of your pieces traced, ironed, pressed, and cut, you're ready to start applying these to your background. Now, I want to point out here, I do things slightly differently than the pattern. It's a little unconventional. Feel free, if you want to continue the course of the pattern and the directions of the pattern, they have a wonderful tutorial with the pattern that you can go ahead and select and follow the specifics to the pattern. Now, the way that, so just quickly to go over, they applique and then they sew the pieces to the quilted portion, and then they sandwich everything. We're going to speed up the process and do things a little quicker. And that's actually my usual and how I do things with my quilts, because I do a ton of applique, and I love to have that applique pop up through the back. And we have fabulous tips, tricks, and tools that really make things much more simplified, and we can skip a couple of steps, I feel like, because of it. But without those tools, I wouldn't skip the steps on the pattern. So that said, we're going to move over to our ironing board here, and we are going to lay out our pieces. You're going to see that we have our entire quilt top pieced together. So I've gone ahead. Oh, I did skip one thing. Let's jump back really quick to our background. Our background, we need to do 2 cuts really quickly, 1 cut on each piece. You'll have 2 rectangles like this. You're going to fold them in half. For those that went to school in the 80s and 90s, hot dog style. I don't know if they still do that. So, yeah. Fold it hot dog style. Then you're going to take the template that is provided in the pattern. And there's this little quarter circle. And you're going to line it up with the tip to the edge of the fabric here. And you're matching the corner of the fold to the very tip of the pattern there. And I am flushing my pattern with the edge, with the folded edge there. You'll notice there is a small overhang here. Don't stress about that. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's okay. It's not going to affect it, I promise. I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to trim that off. And this is how we're going to get that rounded edge on either side. So this is really important. I promise, because I made a very big boo-boo my first time. You only want, out of your two pieces, each one should have a curved edge and a straight edge. Simple. One curved, one straight. I happen to round them both. It's fine. Didn't work so well the first time around. So one rounded or one curved edge and one straight edge. The straight edge is what you'll match up with your squares, your beautiful little square pieces that you built together. And then you'll go ahead and once you have both of those sewn together, we'll move back over to the ironing board. It'll look like this. Over here at the ironing board, we've got this laid out. Sorry, Adriana, I didn't mean to jump. There you go. Okay, so we have the entire length sewn together of your table runner. Okay, so with it all being laid out, you'll notice I already have half of this on here. Okay, so why is it like that? Because we're doing some cheats here. Why are we doing some cheats? Because ODIF has some awesome tools, one of which is my favorite, the 505 stick. This is how I am applying all of these applique pieces on. Once they're on, unless I purposely yank them off, they're not coming off. So just really quick, let's pull this guy. This is why I like it. So the basting spray that we're all familiar with is great. That's what I used to sandwich all three of my layers together, which you'll see I've got the backing here, and I sprayed my batting and attached my backing, and then I sprayed my batting, and then I attached my top. From there, I went ahead and put these on. Now I'm going to you can see I have to like actually peel this up, right? That's the difference between the glue stick, the basting stick, and I'll bring this to the camera so that you can see where that was. There is no residue either. There is zero residue here. So that's kind of why I get a cheat, why you can cheat too. I am going to be appliquing, top stitching, and quilting all at the same time. Really quick, we'll go ahead and get our pieces applied on the second side here. I'm going to fold this over and turn it around so we have the working space in front of us. Okay. All right, I'm going to actually give this a quick spray again just to make sure it's secure since I peeled that up. I really hope to see some of these table runners. If you do make one, like Jackie said, please post it on the I Love Cuddle Fabric Facebook page. You want to hold your spray. I'm trying not to overspray the camera by using my arm to block it a little bit. Normally, I would set up a little bit of an overspray situation, but as long as you're doing little bits, it's okay. It is water soluble, so it does wipe off really easily. I've been able to clean things off, wash them, because it's only a temporary. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at all of our different options. We are coming up on the end here of our live. We've got just a little bit longer. Please make sure that if you have not shared yet, that you do share the live so that you can be entered to win our contest. You'll be getting a fat quarter bundle as well as a yard of backing so that you too can make one of these beautiful table runners to set the tone for your fun holiday season. So when it comes to placing our applique, you can become as precise and copy the pattern if you would like, or you can just kind of go for it. It's up to you and what you want to do. They do have some of these leaves kind of fallen off a little bit of there, and you'll notice that you do trim those off when you get into there, just really quick, we're just gonna do just place, it's nothing too crazy. Okay, fix this guy. All right, once I have it where I want it, for the most part, and I have an idea of what I'm doing, I'm just gonna go ahead and take my leaf off here, flip it over, grab my 505 stick, and now I'm not necessarily focusing on these points. I want the fat pieces. I want as fat as I can get, and I'm not gonna do it on here, I'll do it over here so that we have some space. I don't wanna get it on the beautiful sand melange. So right in here, I'm just gonna grab as much of this as I can, as quickly as I can, because I don't want it to dry on me. It does dry pretty quick, so don't take your time or you're gonna have to reapply, and I don't like having to reapply because it gets gunky. Nobody wants that. So once I have that, I go back to about where I remember it. If you wanna get super picky with it, you can mark your placements and get them in there really well, okay? You'll notice it's blue, and when I peeled that up, it was clear. There was nothing there. Love, love, love that. So we'll go ahead and do this one really quick. This has become, between this and the iron, these are my favorite tools. The 505 stick and the Oslo Project Iron both have made my life, when it comes to doing my projects, so much simpler and quicker that I find myself enjoying it more. With big pieces like this, you can spray the 505. I'm not going to, because I want it to stay put as much as possible. So I am not going to be using the basing spray. It does have more of a temporary effect than the stick. So I'm just going to grab, and I'm not going to do the entire piece. It doesn't need the entire piece. Just grabbing most of that. I don't know if you can see that there. And then I'm going to come back over here and place this. Don't worry about it being perfect and overhang. If you do have any overhang, you can always trim that off once you have done your stitching. Okay, so we'll just grab this one too. Like I said, I use this also to help with my binding, my zippers. It's helpful in anything that I want to have a semi-temporary hold without leaving residue or marks or anything like that. It's come in handy more often, I feel like, than I would have ever thought. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that down there. All right. Okay, so now I've got those on there. I'm not putting my stem on yet because we're going to sew we'll sew the pumpkin before we place it, and that's so that we can actually have knowing exactly where it's going to go. Now the water soluble stabilizer, we're going to pull that out. We'll go over to the cutting mat. We're going to pull our pattern back out. Okay, and this is where I would do either one type of leaf at a time, or 3 different color of markers. Just, I prefer 3 different color of markers, and then I don't have to worry about it. Jackie, yes, binding is my favorite, one of my favorite ways to use the 505 stick. I will show you that as well before we head out, but I'll go ahead and trace this out. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Do use an alcohol-based marker when you do this, or pen, as this is a water soluble. Otherwise, it's going to melt on you. You don't want it melting on you. And then on top of tracing my lines out, I give myself a point of reference, so I make sure I'm placing it as accurately as possible. And for me, that's just giving myself an outline of the stem. And then I know exactly where it's going to go. From there, go ahead and cut this out. And once upon a time, I did spray this and then put it on. I wouldn't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. And keep in mind, when you trace it, you are mirroring the image. Okay, so you'll need to flip this when you apply it. So we'll head back over to our ironing board. We're going to pin. I've got all of these traced and ready to go. We're going to get them pinned on here. This provides me with knowing exactly where I want my top stitch to go. So you'll want to, this one actually, sorry, purple is orange. All right, there's this one. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and get this pinned on here really quick. And you'll notice I'm pinning, well, maybe you can't notice because of the camera. I am actually pinning all the way through all 3 layers. All 3 layers are getting that pin shoved through it. And I am mostly trying to stay out of the stitch lines. The lines that I've drawn here are my stitch lines. I'm trying to stay out of that way so that I don't have to take out pins all the time and move things around a lot. The less you have to take out, stop and take out and stop and take out, the faster it's going to go, and you're not going to feel like this is the tedious part. So pin not on the lines, the sewing lines if possible. Let's see here. So I've marked my stem and I can just match it right up. I know that it's mirrored. I've got to remember that so that it's going the right direction. But outside of that, it's already right where I need it to be. So. And you can get really fun with different textures of, with different prints of fabrics to add different textures and dimensions. So like the pumpkin, I used our Luxe hide because it has that texture, pumpkin-y, bumpy texture in it for the one that you saw earlier. And I really loved what it provided. There's the, you know, you've got our seal or our encore, you've got bunny, you've got all these fun different textures that you can utilize in your appliques to really give things more dimension than it would have had otherwise. Also makes it a little bit more unique to what would have been done. We're so used to seeing everything in cotton, and what do we do? What can we do with Cuddle? You know, outside of stuffies and blankets and all of those. Well, how about a table runner that has different textures to celebrate the season? Some fun placemats that give, and the best part, it's all machine washable. It's all machine washable. Who cares if the kids spill on them? Toss them in the wash after. So, I mean, really, there's a lot more to quilting Cuddle than just quilting. And same, you know, just stuffies or blankets. I even do apparel with it. I made my little witch hat for my Wizard of Oz costume out of it, and it was a lot of fun. I was able to actually quilt the brim and create that texture through quilting that and providing a fun design on that. Let's see. Okay, we're almost done here. Flip this over. All right. I know we're cutting it close on time here. I just want to talk about some stitching that you can do for your top stitching. In the pattern, it calls for a satin stitch. I do a simple straight stitch until I have everything down on here. So what I will do is I will actually sew 1/8 of an inch around the entire edge of the piece. And then I trim off all of my excess, all the excess, just so that I'm not having to fight it under the machine, and I'm only having to fight with what I need under the machine, especially since I'm quilting it, and then I know all the pieces are where they need to be. If that makes you uncomfortable, you can always quilt the center piece first before you trim, and that'll also give it a little bit more stability. So once you have your straight stitch done, though, you can go back in and do a satin stitch. You can do blanket stitching on the edges if you would prefer over a straight stitch. It's up to you. I like the fact that with the Cuddle, especially quilting Cuddle and C3s and Luxes, all of these, the fabric can actually get lost and look like it's just meant to be there if you do the straight stitch. It looks like it's part of the design of the fabric and it's just natural. It's not necessarily sewn. And I think that's a really fun way to showcase different styles and textures and prints of the fabric, making it feel seamless like that. And so I prefer a straight stitch. I do, when I'm doing my top stitching and I'm doing a straight stitch, you can do your triple stitch, but I actually find it easier to just sew back over the line with these particular appliques. So I would, let's see here, how are we on time? I will hop under here, under the machine, and we'll go ahead and sew one of these leaves, just so you can get an idea of why I am sewing it the way that I am. So I'll meet you over at the sewing machine. Okay. So I still have all this bulk, and this is why you'll see why I choose to actually do my 1/8 of an inch stitching and then trim it. But we are running short on time, so I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat method here and just kind of go for it. I'm going to toss this under my machine and we'll stitch it out. When I'm sewing the top stitching of the leaves, I do extend my stitch length to 4 centimeters, to the 4 millimeters. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and start at the base of the leaf veins. So I'm starting where the stem of the leaf is, and I'm just going to stitch and follow. And I'll show you how nicely this actually comes out just using a simple straight stitch. And I'm not going to worry about changing my thread again so that we can make sure that you can see how this works. And I don't mind brown on yellow. It's actually kind of fun to play with your colors and your top stitching as well. So get creative with it. This would be a fun place to put your variegated threads as well. So I'm just going to make sure that I backpack that. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let the machine do as much of this as possible. Keep in mind, I am sewing through 3 layers. I may need to adjust my presser foot tension. So I may need to loosen it if you keep it at the tightest. And that's referring to how tight this foot is pressing on the fabric. Just so that you can see here, especially when you're working with an aqua film or water-soluble stabilizer, you'll notice I prefer the walking foot with it because it can stretch, it can get stuck on the metal. It's a little funky, so you may have to lift the foot to release it from it if it gets stuck on there, if you see it stretching at all. But for the most part, it just stretches over it. There are other options that you can use. Other people have other techniques that they use. I like the water soluble because if for some reason it gets stuck and I can't get it out of that particular crevice, I am able to just wash it out and I don't have to stress out about it. So I'm just going to rotate. Now you can see this is why I prefer to trim, so that I'm not fighting all of this fabric here. Oops, excuse me. Okay, so careful of our pins. Also, then I don't get myself with the pins as much. Yeah, the variegated threads would be so fun. Okay, I'm just going to jump in here and push this down. So I have sewn a straight line and I've flipped it 180 degrees on itself. So now I am at the top of my leaf and I'm going to start sewing back down. And this is why I choose to do it this way. You're going to see this coming through here. I stop, and now I'm going to rotate again. And this is where the placemats are really easy because you don't have the bulk. The table mat or the table runner, you do want to get rid of as much of the bulk as possible, so you're not fighting it, because it does get a little tricky. So we're going to just here. Okay, now I can flip it around again. There's a lot of flips, and it's a little hard on the bulk, so just have some patience with it. If I just stabbed myself, it's fine. Blood, sweat, and tears. If you find yourself getting flustered with it, you can roll it. There's a lot of tricks that I normally do. I'm just kind of fighting with it right now, just for the sake of this. Normally I would roll it up to the side and have a little bit more patience, but we're not going to have to be patient. We're just going to move and group. So now I'm going to flip it around. So every vein is getting a double stitch. And this is how I'm able to stay in the same line, without having to take it off the machine and move and twist it around. This is one solid stitch line. Now, if you are fancy, like Sheila or Ryn or Dawn, anybody that has any of our Cuddle ambassadors that have embroidery machines, if you're fancy like that, you can find a leaf embroidery pattern, and you can just put it under your machine and have your machine embroider the leaves. And then it would go really fast, I'm sure. I am a traditionalist when it comes to my applique. I really love being able to get my hands into it and make the lines and the designs that I want. Sometimes I'll go off script and stitch a couple extra lines for some definition, or so I love doing, if, for example, you wanted to do a character and they had hair, you can play around with the textures of the fabric in your applique for that very purpose. You can add a few extra stitch lines to give it a little bit more direction, some swirls in the hair if you want. Yeah, Jackie, you're right. That's exactly what I normally do. I'm being really lazy right now. And kind of making things a little bit harder under the machine. I'll roll it up the next time we go under. So, but by doing it this way, I'm getting all three layers. I am essentially top stitching, quilting, all in one. And it actually makes it so much easier, because I'm not having to feel like I've got multiple steps that I'm going to be having to come in with. This way, it's once I'm done with this yellow leaf, it's not just done appliqued, it's not just done top stitch, it's also quilted all the way through. Go back a little bit. There we go. All right. Double check that your fabric is not folding under when you're doing this. It's really easy to forget, and then you've now have to unstitch because it's folded underneath your fabric as well, and then it's not such a fun time. Let's see. Almost done. There we go. Yeah, Jackie, rolling it really does make a difference. Just so y'all know, Jackie was not wrong. This is how I do normally do it. You roll it so that it's not being shoved all over the place, and you have a little bit more accuracy with it. And you all can see the camera easier too, I'm sure. Yes, there is a lot of twisting and turning because of the leaves. You can absolutely just do the satin stitch and go up and down once or twice, of all the vines. I liked having this all in one. Satin stitching takes a little bit longer if you have the patience for it. I don't, so I don't. I leave the satin stitching up to my embroidery module because, yeah, I can do it. It's not a fun time for me. It just takes forever to do a single line. So I like straight stitch because I can also get really fine details. Like I was saying with the hair. So I did a Alice in Wonderland applique with Alice, the Disney Alice, and her hair has these really beautiful bouffant swirls in the front for the bangs. And to make sure I got that definition, I went in there and freehand sewed the swirls as I wanted them. And it worked out really well because it was just a simple straight stitch that created that line of definition. It's kind of similar to carving out. So if you look at some of our prints, some of them are heat printed for some of the textures, and some of them are cut out or stamped out in that way. And so it kind of provides that faux look for you that you would get in a cutout print or a textured print. All right, I'm going to finish this off. Okay. All right. I just stabbed myself again. Just so y'all know, I normally wouldn't pin them all at once either because of that very reason. I would usually pin one at a time, at least for the water soluble. I'll meet you on over at the ironing board. All right. So once you have it done, and you've trimmed your threads and you're happy with the way it looks, and your pins are out, this is the fun part for me. Anybody that does embroidery knows that this is a fun part. Well, I think it's a fun part where you can just go, woo, woo. But to the same point, if you did the press and seal glad whatever stuff, if anything gets trapped under your stitches, have fun weeding that out compared to just washing it, right? So you can always grab some tweezers and get in there and pull a little bit more on there and clean that up a little bit. And because I did brown thread, you can really see the stitching, which is really kind of fun in here. Right? So then if you look on the back, this is already quilted. So once I've done all of my applique and all of my top stitching, I'm ready to bind because it's already done. I'm just doing one piece at a time, one leaf at a time, one pumpkin at a time, and then you can go in and stitch in the ditch or quilt your squares however you'd like, whatever looks good to you. Really fast, I'll show you a trick on binding, and then I think we'll have to do our winners here because we're so short on time. Binding, I cut my binding at 1 inch for this project. I know that seems really tight. If you want to do more bulk, go for it. But the nice part about this is that it's just folding over in half and sandwiching it. So I am keeping my raw edges here when I do it. So I will show you on this one here. So this is just a raw edge with a C3, and I do the same thing with the quilting cuddle, okay? Now, when I'm doing this, I have all of my pieces attached, but then I do end up to close my binding. There's a couple ways I use the 505 stick, and I wish we had more time to show you more, but we'll be happy with what we have. So when I do the binding, I know, looking at the fabric, where my nap is, right? So I always have my nap going down. That's my preferred. I know that my stitch line is going to be here for my binding, and I take my stick and I mark it there and make sure that the other side is going down as well. And then I'm going to rotate that and make my square. And now the part that's glued is going to be the part that's cut. So I don't have to worry about it maneuvering on me at all. If I really want to, I actually do like to do this so that I remember the direction of my stitch line so I don't make any mistakes and have to undo it. I put a pin in right there to make sure I get the direction. And that is how I get my seams on my Cuddle, on my quilting Cuddle. There's so many uses for the O'Deef products. I highly suggest diving into them. I'm excited to dive into them more. The Aliso iron, this project iron, is perfect if you have a small studio space like I do, and you don't want a heavy iron lugging around. It really does simplify things. It's really small. The cord is a decent length. You could go cordless, but honestly, I don't like the cordless ones. I really like this Aliso iron. I'm able to have more control with it, even though it's a small iron. I'm able to have the dual steam, which is really fun to play with. This pattern is really, really fun to work with, whether you're doing cotton, any of our Cuddles, Luxe, Cuddle, Quilting Cuddle, C3. You can really get in there and have fun with it. It really provides so much ample opportunity for you to play with your own fat quarter pack. Speaking of, let's get into our winners. Who do we have for our winners, Adriana? We've got Debbie, Leah. I hope I'm saying Leah and Lori. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Please email us at info@shannonfabrics.com with your name, shipping info, and phone number in the subject line, live winner. We are so excited that you get to do this. If you are able to create one of these beautiful table runners and placemats, which please do the placemats as well. They are so easy once you've done the table runner. You can post our picture. We'd love to see your pictures on the I Love Cuddle Fabrics Facebook group. If you have any questions while you're working on your table runner, I'm always in there taking a peek, as well as all of our other Cuddle ambassadors. We all love to help and jump in there as we can. So if you have any questions, it's a fabulous place to jump in, whether you are new to Cuddle or you've been working with it for some time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so happy that I got to make this table runner with you. Once I have it finished, I'll be binding it and finishing up the top stitching and applique. I'll get that posted quickly myself, probably tonight, actually. So I do have a full-time job, unfortunately, I have to go to, but I'm going to come back home and sew. So I'll be posting the finished for you with the placemats matching as well. I hope you all enjoyed this fun table runner with me. It really is a breeze to make. You can get lost in it. You can play with your textures. You can play with your colors of thread. I can't wait to see. I hope you all have a great day. Happy sewing. We'll see you next time. Bye.